Brooke was a bright and lovely little girl who grew up surrounded by love and warmth. One day, her dad gave her a very different kind of present, a tiny raven chick. He said raising it would help her learn how to take care of something and understand responsibility. But then, something heartbreaking happened. Brooke passed away suddenly, and no one really knew why. At her funeral, as her small coffin rested in the quiet, the raven perched on top, and that's when something unbelievable happened. Even though Brooke was only 6, she was strong-willed, full of energy, and so full of life. She loved spending time outside in the garden, watching bugs crawl on leaves and flowers sway in the breeze. She would dash between trees, climb them fearlessly, and come home with scratched knees and torn clothes. She didn't care one bit. She was having the time of her life. She liked watching fish in the nearby stream and seeing birds glide across the sky. Her family lived in a peaceful little village in Cornwall in the UK. Life moved slowly there. Brooke's mom stayed home, taking care of the house and looking after Brooke. Her dad was a sailor, often gone for weeks or even months at a time. Brooke always missed him terribly while he was away, but the moment he came home was the best part. She looked forward to it so much, not just because she missed him, but also because he always brought her curious and fascinating gifts from all over the world. Over the years, he had brought back things like colorful seashells from the Caribbean, strange little statues from distant countries in the Middle East, and books and toys from different parts of Europe and America. Brooke cherished every one of them, proudly showing them off to her friends while telling tales of her father's adventures at sea. This time she waited by the garden gate, eyes wide and heart racing. He'd been gone for 2 whole months, and she knew he was due home any day. Then she saw him coming slowly down the street. She shrieked with happiness and ran toward him, wrapping her arms tightly around him and kissing his cheek. But something felt different. He didn't have a present in his hands like he usually did. No shiny wrapping paper or ribbon. Instead, he knelt down and gently placed something soft and warm into her hand. She flinched when it moved slightly and looked down. There, sitting in her palm, was a tiny baby bird. Her dad told her it was a young raven, probably just a week or 2 old. He asked her to care for it like she would a real baby. Brooke was puzzled at first, unsure why her dad had given her a bird instead of one of his usual presents. But then her face lit up. She realized this was something special, a big responsibility. Over the next few weeks, she barely left the raven's side. She fed it, gave it water, and even taught it a few little tricks. Ravens are smart, and hers quickly started to understand what she wanted. As the weeks went by, the chick grew stronger and learned how to fly. Brooke would take it outside and watch with wonder as it soared through the air. It could have flown off and never come back, but it always returned to her. You could tell right away. Brooke and that bird shared a real bond. But then, out of nowhere, something terrible happened. One sunny day, while she was lying in the garden under the big tree, Brooke suddenly gasped for air and grabbed at her throat. The raven let out a loud, panicked squawk. Within seconds, her parents looked out the window, alarmed by the noise. What they saw made their hearts stop. Their daughter was writhing on the ground. They didn't think twice. Scooping her up in their arms, they rushed her to the car, leaving the frantic raven behind. It flapped into the tree and watched the car disappear down the road, then flew through Brooke's open window and landed on her bed, waiting. At the hospital, the doctors immediately got to work. A child as healthy as Brooke shouldn't have been struggling to breathe, so they began scanning her lungs, trying to find out what went wrong. They also tried everything they could to get her breathing again. Every second without oxygen could mean serious damage. Her parents stood nearby, holding each other, their eyes filled with tears. Despite all the medical effort, nothing worked. Brooke was declared dead. As the doctor quietly said the time, the raven appeared outside the hospital window, pecking at the glass and crying out. But the staff kept brushing it off. A bird didn't belong in a hospital, no matter whose it was. When Brooke's parents left, numb with grief, the raven followed their car, tapping at the windows and calling out, but they barely noticed. It was all just too much. Back at home, the family started planning Brooke's funeral. The raven tried over and over to get their attention, but they couldn't focus on anything but their loss. Then came the funeral. Friends, family, neighbors, everyone who loved Brooke gathered to say goodbye. Her small coffin sat open, letting people see her one last time. She looked so delicate and peaceful, like a little porcelain doll. No one could quite believe she was really gone. The sadness in the room was heavy. People wept as they passed by, gently touching her face or giving her a soft kiss goodbye. But there was one guest at the funeral that many hadn't expected: the raven. It sat quietly in a tree nearby, watching everything unfold. Every so often, it would fly over the group, cawing loudly as if calling out. Brooke's parents held their breath when the bird suddenly swooped down and landed right on the edge of the coffin. It tilted its head, staring at the little girl's still face. Then it made an odd sound, a soft buzzing, almost like it was trying to speak. It paced back and forth between the lid and the side of the coffin, restless and focused. After a moment, it started gently pecking at Brooke's body, as though trying to wake her. Her parents were stunned. It was both touching and strange. They could see the raven was grieving in its own way, but they couldn't let it continue. They called out, trying to shoo it away, but the raven wouldn't stop. It even began pecking gently at Brooke's mouth, which looked strange and unsettling to the mourners. But something else was going on. Her father stepped forward, waving his arms to scare it off. With one last squawk, the bird took off and returned to the tree, watching silently from above. Everyone's eyes followed the raven's flight, but when they turned back to the coffin, everything stopped. Brooke was sitting up. There, on her lap, was a small, strange egg, about the size of a walnut. It had likely fallen from the tree above and somehow gotten lodged in her throat while she lay in the garden. It had blocked her airway without anyone realizing. At the hospital, the doctors had only scanned her lungs, missing the real issue. She had slipped into a coma from the lack of oxygen, breathing faintly, but never truly gone. Now she looked up at her stunned parents. They rushed to her, wrapping her in their arms, crying and holding her close. Their daughter was alive. And then it hit them. The raven had known the truth all along. It had tried everything to get their attention, to show them. Even the pecking at her mouth had been a desperate attempt to help. Somehow it had saved her just in time. What an incredible story. Can you imagine witnessing something like that? If you were at that funeral and saw Brooke come back to life, how would you react? We'd love to hear what you think. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartfelt stories like this one.